Alpha Day and welcome to Data Points. My name is Ryan. I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam. Today we're with Ann Dela Cruz. She's the founder of the Asia Pacific Investing Summit that's happening in April. And Ann is unique because she's from here. She was in the military and she finished her career in service and relocated back to Guam to start a business, which is a 3D printing business, which is why you're going to go to Guam to start a 3D printing business. Well, it's because we have an attainable housing problem. She had hoped to solve that. So with the idea of getting investors to Guam, with the idea of getting additive manufacturing and alternative processes to Guam, I asked her to come on to speak to her experience. And I asked for you to speak to your experience as well by liking and sharing our content in all the channels that we are. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate your questions and we want to answer the questions that you have. So please send them our way and we'll find the answers. Alpha Day, my name is Ryan and this is Data Points. So welcome to Ann Dela Cruz, and Ann is here to represent the Asia Pacific Real Estate Investment Summit, and that's coming up in April. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you, Ryan.
I laughed because I stumbled over that like 4 different times before we ran in.
I was hoping that third time would be a charm.
It was the 5th, but we made it.
We got there.
But with that, I'll say I was a participant and a speaker in the first, and I really valued it because it brought together a group that I'd never seen before, and it brought together systems of investment that I'd never seen before. And in that instance of it, you were focusing on the military investment network of active and former service members who would effectively pool the retirement funds and find local properties, and the structure by which to create retirement instruments that were effectively real estate and invest in that as a group, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Building generational wealth through real estate investing.
Okay. Now tell me about this iteration of the conference and what you hope to achieve and who's going to come.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ryan. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is definitely a pleasure to be here with you and being able to share this story and kind of what we have upcoming. So the Asia Pacific Real Estate Investing Summit, this is the second go around. It does bring together, when you first experienced it, we were really focused on military real estate investors, mainly because that was where our community started. Mm-hmm. Started in Japan, spread over to Korea, Hawaii, and now, of course, Guam. We were mostly a virtual community. And so the idea behind the summit was to actually bring people that we've engaged with for the past, I think 3 years at the time, to come together in person. And of course, Guam's just a great playground, right? You got, yes, we come get the education, real estate investing topics. You could get the networking, which is very impactful. But more importantly, because it's Guam, you get to have those beach activities and those cultural excursions, which I think are really key, very unique to our island. And so one of the lessons learned from that first inaugural event was that there were actually more than just the military who are actually really interested in this. And so a couple of people brought that to my attention, and it compelled me to realize that I need to open it up to more than just military real estate investors. And so now with this next summit, we're going global. And so now we're trying to open the doors to not just investors, but real estate investing families. And the idea is to lay it over spring break. So it's kind of like a spring break escape.
Okay.
And the idea is for them to bring their families to Guam, get what they want, what they're looking for in real estate investing topics, but then get to be able to play with their family. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people talk about building generational wealth through real estate investing. But when you look at all the other types of summits and conferences available worldwide, they really only focus on the investor. They don't really make it easy for investor families to actually include their children, which is the whole reason why they do it.
Understood. So tell me this, what qualifies you to host a summit? And then also, what is the value proposition you're offering for people to invest in?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, what a question. So what qualifies me is that I am that market. I represent a real estate investing family. I have young kids, ages 10 and 8 with my twins. And, a lot of what I do in life and the choices and investments that I make are for them. So really, I am that market. And then I have been doing real estate investing for about 20 years now. Kind of got started doing what is now known as house hacking. I was doing it 20 years ago. And then in 2008, when the market crashed, everybody was running away and I was just running in and saying, all right, I will take this one.
And you're a veteran, Ann. correct?
I am a veteran. I'm also a service member today. So serve in the Army Reserve. My spouse is retired Army active duty. And so, and then of course I'm native to the island, right? So Guam is my home, born and raised. And I forgot the other part of your question.
What qualifies you to say, right? So you've identified yourself as an investor.
Yes.
And then also, what is the value proposition that you offer for investors to come to your summit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that clarity. So basically, the Asia Pacific Investor Network is the community of military real estate investors that got started about 2022. I founded that community, and it didn't start as Ann's intention to build a community. It really started because it was a pain point. I, as a real estate investor, was living overseas, and when you live overseas, you kind of have that immediate limiting belief of, okay, I'm abroad, I don't have the same access to resources that I normally would if I were living in mainland US. And so it was really a way to overcome my own limiting circumstances. And then I just found friends who were experiencing the same pain points. And that's kind of what brought us together. And sure enough, that compounded, right, to other people who were also experiencing the same pain. So really, it was all about connecting with other people who shared that passion for real estate investing and who also happened to be residing in this part of the world, who also felt that they didn't have access to the same resources that if you were living stateside, you would. And so that community has already started and has been thriving for the last 3 years. And now we're just trying to create a way for us to gather in person because most of that community is virtual. So coming here to be able to get the type of education that you would have to literally fly to the U.S. to get, but now you can get that here.
Okay, I get it. You were trying to get 3D printing for houses here, right? And you're working with a company called Mudbots, right? And you've been trying to get a machine here, and you had a tiny house project, and you're trying to deal with some of the structural issues to get that permitted and to get that approved. And you dealt with some of the pushback in terms of getting those things adopted here, which is indicative of kind of the experience across the board. Get a house built, traditionally, it's pretty tough, right? You get different answers. It's really hard to solve that problem. The structures don't exist for most consumers to get there who don't have significant resources and time. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so that company is Starsand Technologies, and just to kind of scale back just a little bit. So, and I'm glad you reframed the question in a way that I was able to speak to that because, initially I was thinking real estate investor going to buy properties, right, whether residential, commercial, and then you reframed the question so that I was thinking more from an entrepreneurial standpoint.
Understood.
Right. So from my background, having been a real estate investor, starting with residential, commercial, and now this company is all about development, right? So how can we leverage technology such as additive construction, 3D concrete printing to be able to address our housing acute problem here on Guam?
Yes.
And so, yes, and you're absolutely right. I have had, we started that effort in November of 2024. Fast forward to today, I still don't have the printer here, and I still don't have my pilot program confirmed. And that in and of itself speaks to the challenges that any investor, any entrepreneur who's trying to affect change experience when trying to do business on this island.
And I'll speak to that, right? And, it may seem exotic to people when you say 3D concrete printing, but just to speak to it, it's literally a tube of concrete that gets printed in a shape. And then in between those shapes, we stick rebar, right? And in between the rebar, we fill it with foam, right? But effectively, it's a concrete structure. It's print hollow block. There's rebar throughout. But when you say that to an insurance company, they say, well, that's too risky. And then with that, what happens is you get a poor or a below A insurance rating because no one's willing to take the risk. And then the cost of this process becomes effectively more expensive, or at least the cost of carrying the structure.
Yes.
And so you've dealt with that, haven't you?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the many challenges I have experienced thus far.
Yeah, but more so it's because it's safer to say no than it is to say yes. Because why take the risk?
Change is hard.
It is. And then also when you're talking about the construction industry has been the same since 1970, right?
There's not a lot of innovation.
And so I went to a conference, and most of the guys running around that conference were that were in the rooms that I was in were kind of like career changers who were coming to the industry with a automation and data mindset. And they were looking at, applying these lessons and automation. But the wall they kept running into is the end product users envisioning development in such a way that incorporated the process, right? Design build with 3D printing. And I think with this RFP, that's been the request for proposal for housing. A lot of modular alternative approaches have been bandied about and talked about. But really what the bottom line is, prime or the person who is actually doing the design build has to do the design build in a material that they believe in and they believe they can execute. And so what I'm sure you're finding is that capacity is that desire is smaller than you would expect. Is that correct?
That is what I'm finding.
Yeah. And so, but I think that's pervasive across the board, not just in the real estate industry, but in the way that we're operating effectively. And that's, so you're someone with an exciting new technology that can really literally solve the attainable housing problem. This thing prints in 3 days. There's no labor.
Minimal labor.
Well, yeah. And the type of labor you need is highly skilled labor. These are molecular scientists and biologists. They're monitoring the mix. But one of the challenges is we don't have a test bed here to really establish what the drying times are going to be, like how it's going to set. And then, so we need some of that science, some of that background. And that UOG is doing a good job in their engineering side. They're working with those solutions. But again, it's structure and it's foresight. And it's understanding that there's different technologies and how are they going to be applied. But ultimately, you have to solve the insurance problem. Yes. Have you done any work on the insurance problem? Have you spoken to that? Because I know you have a background in the insurance industry as well.
Yes, it's life and health, not property and casualty or auto.
Fair.
So there is a company, there is an insurance company here on Guam that we are having conversations with that we feel would work with us. The challenge is, what it would take is a partnership with another company. So basically a general contractor who's already tested and proven and willing to absorb some of the risk, right? And we also have that. So on the insurance front, I get it. I think when people start to peel away the onion of what that really means, it comes down to risk, right? The risk to the insurance company to underwrite what they consider an unproven technology here on Guam. And I think that partnering with other organizations or other industry experts who are proven will help. And I think for the financial institutions, right, when they look at, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, is people recognize that insurance is a problem because it means if we don't overcome that obstacle, we can't get to financing. And ultimately, that's what most people need, right? Even if we could print the home in 1 day and it's move-in ready, you can't buy it because most people don't have the money or cash to buy it off of that.
Yeah, it doesn't solve your liquidity problem. It doesn't solve those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So that's why when people question, they don't question the technology. They question, how am I, as an individual person with set income, are going to be able to afford this? How is that affordable to me? And so I think it's really important to break down how that technology enables that. But you're absolutely right in that insurance is part of that challenge and that obstacle that needs to be overcome.
Yeah, and so we talk about structural systems that impede, right? And so, again, you're asking investors to come to Guam and they're going to be met headlong with these structural issues. Okay, can I do new builds? Well, there's not going to be any new builds. We don't know what the cost is going to be, and there could be so many price shocks, right? Well, what's the best location to invest in? Well, that's going to be varied and disparate, right? Because we don't really have any zoning standards and we don't really have any trend lines for where investment's going to happen. And we're not incentivizing any sections for investment. We're not incentivizing any industries. So, if you come in it like that, or without a plan, it's really hard to make the case. And when you're in a structure where information is disparate, it's really hard to make a decision. So it's really important to have a partner that understands how to really accurate information to the best of their ability that's available.
Yeah.
And help interpret.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. data is what will help drive the business decisions, because at the end of the day, it is a lot of risk, but the more data you have can inform your decision to help mitigate those risks.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with that.
Right. And so I said, Ann, how are you going to find these houses? That's how are you going to find, and so that's how I asked you to be on, right? It's like, hey, you're doing the summit again. We should have a conversation because your investors need to be able to have information, zoning, utility, all those kinds of things. And the reason why is because a lot of times if you buy something here, you're buying a problem that you don't even know about. Yeah. And so if I was to say, hey, buy this land and, I'll find a contractor to build a house for you, and then you're foregoing all the functional issues that have to happen between point and A. It seems like a great idea, but really it's a lesson in frustration. Generally, unless you have skill or the infrastructure to execute. And most people don't. And they get into it, they go into it blind.
Yeah, no, and that is a problem. And then if I may offer just a point of clarity, because I do recognize when you experienced the summit, that was sort of the experience for the investors then. We are doing it just a little bit differently this next round. And what I mean by that is that instead of bringing already experienced real estate investors and come looking at the Guam market and what's possible for them, instead now we're bringing likely interested and new to real estate investing and seasoned real estate investors. But instead of just digging right into the market, we're more like using it in Guam market as a case study. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if you are getting started real estate investing and you need to understand there are certain basics, right, and fundamentals that you're going to want to know. Here are what those fundamentals are, and oh, by the way, let's apply them using the Guam market.
Sure.
And then if you're interested, then we could take next steps. But I think the first summit, we didn't know where we were going to go. We just kind of said, let's just get you in a room and educate you and show you some property. And while it went great, I think we could do better. And I think we recognize that. And so for this next summit, those are some of the changes that we're implementing. And so I think we're much more intentional about how we want to present Guam as a potential market to these investors. So
that makes sense. Yeah. And, I can speak to the story of the service member investor, right? Because I was on that journey, not as a service member, but as a realtor working with service members. And so Paradise Estates is a case study, right? You have an enlisted guy buy his one, right? And then just through the phasing of the additional phases and equity building over time, by the time he ended his deployment, he had 3.
Nice.
So it was a 6-year run, right?
Yeah.
And then he left and he had 3 investment properties that are, I'm sure, have realized, he probably bought them at like 300. They're like trading at like 590 now, right? And they're renting probably at $3,000 a month, right? And, it's been, the margins have been pretty good up until this point for anyone who bought at a certain point. Yeah. But we're also at this place where the margins may not make sense for everybody, right? Because of interest rates, because of price shocks, because of the lack of availability of inventory, and because of the lack of churn. And the lack of churn is a lack of liquidity and a lack of a middle class and a lack of growing economy that will sustain growth. And so that becomes a challenge internally for making the case for investment. But that's just because, again, you don't have the data, because there are opportunities out there, so many. Yeah. And so I see them every day and I see them traded every day. But it's a shame because they're not properly being exposed, these opportunities. And the reason why is because nobody knows where to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I'm so grateful that someone like you is willing to spearhead that effort, because it's at the end of the day, it's all about access, right? So creating a platform to give people access to data so that they can make informed investment decisions. I think that's absolutely key.
Yeah, I agree. And so speak to me about where you think the economy is going. Where do you think everything is going?
Here, the Guam economy?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man. Honestly, it's not looking good.
Okay.
Do I think? Yeah, that is a really big question. I worry. I do worry for Guam's economy. I see a heavy reliance on markets like DOD or DOW that are great for the near term, but not good for the long term. And I think we have an opportunity today to take what is being invested through those types of projects that come from that line of funding and put it more in like infrastructure that will benefit the island for long term. But in the meantime, I think we have some work to do to kind of reimagine what the economy for Guam could look like. Of course, we have decades of data and evidence that tourism has done really well for many of us islanders. But that doesn't necessarily have to be our future. I think it still needs to be a part of it, but I do think we need to take some time to reflect and reimagine what that could be for us. Because right now, as someone who has been away from the island for the last 25 years, coming back home, I look at my island home and I'm kind of like, what does that future look like? And I've lived in a lot of different places. I've moved 15 times in the last 20 years. And so I've seen other ways of living, other ways of doing things. And of course, Guam is home. It's where my family live and where my kids thrive. But as an entrepreneur looking at trends and possibilities, I don't know if we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, and so with that, I agree. I think I don't know that we're headed in the right direction either, but I think those conversations needs to be had and it needs to be called out. Yeah. So speak to me about your journey to getting investors here with the summit.
Mm-hmm. So, gosh, where does my journey begin? So it started with being on Yokota Air Base, which is in just the outskirts of Tokyo, Japan. And it was COVID, and I had already made the decision that I was going to find a way to overcome my overseas circumstance. But of course, the tools that I used before for my entrepreneurial successes were to get out and network. Well, we couldn't do that, right? Like, couldn't go out and couldn't meet people. And so, but because of COVID, I learned that, gosh, you can do it virtually. And so started doing things virtually. One thing led to another. And all of a sudden, I just find myself meeting people that I never would have crossed paths with virtually. But then we were able to take that virtual connection and also have kind of local meetups. And so what started just as me, again, trying to overcome my personal pain points led to finding other people who shared those pain points. And, oh, by the way, happened to also share that passion for real estate investing. And so small group became good-sized community, became expanding to other locations throughout Japan. And since Korea is in the same time zone and we were doing things virtually, we included Korea. I already had a footprint here in Guam. So I thought, gosh, Guam's only an hour ahead. We're doing it virtually. Let's include Guam.
Why not?
And then Hawaii was like, oh, we're Pacific. And I said, well, you're not Asia Pacific. And really what's driving all of this is time, right? You got to be in the similar time zone because otherwise it's hard.
Work, yeah.
But you know what? They made a compelling case. They said, come on, Hawaii, come join us. And so then we became, essentially what I call Team Asia Pacific. But ultimately, this group has just been an incredible community. And every time, and this is something I do as a volunteer. It's my way of kind of giving back. I've been very fortunate in my career doing real estate investing that I just happened to be at the right place with the right time, meeting the right people, right? And so because I benefited from that, this is my way of creating a platform to pay that forward.
Sure.
And so, that has then led to how can we come together in person? Because quite frankly, a lot of us have been doing work together, business together, over the course of months, some even years, and we've never met in person. And so when I was moving back to Guam, I was like, hey, why don't we create a way that we can gather in person? It started really small, but, conceptually, but I guess the demand is really there because then it ended up, going strong. And that's kind of what you experienced. Mm-hmm. That event, Ryan, was actually literally concept that we went live in 2 months.
Yeah.
And so that was really wild.
I agree. Well, I mean, just to endeavor to do that was amazing.
Yeah. So I told myself I wasn't going to do it again because it was so stressful to do something of that, because at the end of the day, what I want, I don't want to throw an event just to throw an event, right? Like I want it to be valuable. I want people to come and I don't want them just to get the education and the network, even though I would argue that is the most valuable thing about doing these types of events is the networking. But because it was here in Guam, I mean, there's just an opportunity to showcase our island right? And not just from the tropical island perspective, but also the cultural. There's so many things about the Chamorro culture that are really unique to Guam and the Micronesia region. And so why not? Why not layer that in for people to get that kind of experience? So that inaugural summit was kind of that test bed of that concept. Thankfully, a lot of people agreed and they walked away with incredible value. So much so that in 2025, they were reaching back and they're like, hey, when are the dates for 2025? I'm like, oh, there's no dates. We're not doing it. And they were like, what? And you got to do it. And the compelling argument is that there was something about our event that made it just organic to appealing to real estate investing families. And I think that was really the key, because I have been to a handful of conferences myself, and I'm sure you have too, especially the ones mainland. They really only create the opportunity for the investor. And even if it's open to the spouses, for two, if they had kids, what do you do with the kids, right? And so that always made it a logistical challenge, which made it less desirable for most families. But now what we're trying to do is try to remove a lot of those pain points, right? We have the summit in a venue. It's going to be held at the Hyatt Regency, so that not only can we have the program, in that space, but also a kids club.
Nice.
And provide that so that families have the peace of mind of knowing that their kids are nearby, they're co-located, and they could go check on them whenever they need. And then, of course, a lot of the activities here on Guam are very family-friendly already. So let's just layer that in.
Nice.
Day 2, which is the one that you were speaking at the last, we completely reimagined that program. It will now be held at the Guam Museum.
Okay.
And what's super cool about that location, Ryan, is that, last time we tried to get people in a room and we tried to educate them about the Guam market, talking about it, sharing some numbers, all that kind of stuff. But what about a way to, because the Guam Museum is located to the Latte Stone Park, to Plaza de España, why don't we just take them there and then use the park to have that conversation? Go to Latte Stone Park. Let's talk about the Chamorro people, who we are, what we do, why we matter. And oh, by the way, the Latte Stones are kind of a pillar of real estate, right? Because in ancient times, that was the foundation for housing. And then we could walk a minute over to Plaza de España. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of World War II remnants. And that's where we could have the conversation of why Guam matters as a strategic location, right? This is why all the military buildup is here. This is why Guam is America in Asia, or the gateway to Asia. Right? And then we'll walk on over to the Guam Museum, and that's where we could talk about Guam in modern times. And then, yes, let's get in a room and let's bring in the experts and let's look at Guam from an investor lens and learn about all the things that you need to understand to be a potential investor, or to at least consider the market. And then if you like it, great, let's get you out and let's look at some property.
Nice. I like the journey that you're going to put people on. It really will give them perspective by the time they're ready to go.
Yes. And then, of course, because one of the lessons we learned from the last summit is we really tried to get people to experience the island, but the way that we did that is we moved people around. It ended up being like a logistic nightmare. And so we were like, you know what, let's just find the venue and make that the anchor, and then we'll bring the island to them. Sure. So at the Guam Museum, of course, we'll have cultural dancers come, and then, of course, we'll end on the note of the Island Fiesta, because, gosh, you can't come to Guam and not experience our food. Right?
Nice, yeah.
So that is the Day 2 program, and yeah, it is completely different from what we were able to present last year. And so I think a lot of our attendees this year, I think, will be pleasantly surprised and hopefully very engaged to include their children in that part of the program.
No, it's really cool. That sounds like it'll give broad perspective and, to frame the information that's being presented.
Yeah. Well, we certainly hope so. That's the plan anyway. But as you say, ideas are easy, execution is hard, right? And so for us, we know we have a good program, we have great ideas, and I think it's well put together, but it'll come down to the execution. So
well, yeah, and I'm really excited to see you kick off again and see that event deploy. I think it is important that we do that, because I think we are devoid of like that meeting, and I invite the local to attend as well, right? It's not just for people coming to Guam. I would say anyone who's interested in real estate investing can get a wealth of information, not just from the information being presented, but the network. The network is the thing. And I just tell you, all the times in life where having someone believe in your concept or understand the language that you're speaking is so activating and facilitates all these good things down row, but you have to be in a room with like-minded people who are on the same journey that you are, or who aspire to be on the same journey that you are. And I think that's important.
Absolutely.
I invite the community to attend and really, because I'm from here, and I valued the content, and I think it was a good program, and I think I'm excited to hear about what you have going on for this iteration of it. And it seems like you have a good plan.
Thank you. We're incredibly excited about it, because at the end of the day, if you ask me if I could whittle down what is the heart of the summit, it's really all about access, right? Like getting access to the people who've been there, who've done that, getting access to the support and the people with the experience who are willing to give. And I think that's what you really will walk away with, because you can cram in as much as you want in 2 days, but what really matters is how do you take that information and apply it and be able to take next steps. And I think people feel more empowered to take next steps when they have a support system, when they've met someone through an event like the summit, where they got to know them in a way that is not just as a real estate investor. I think for us, that's how we reimagine the program, to layer in different environments, right? For example, day one, we will start in the ballroom, but then we'll end up at the beach. And the reason is because the type of conversation you have in that ballroom is likely not the same conversation you'll have when you're by the pool, experiencing the sunset, have local talent with a drink in your hand. I think the types of conversations we'll have will appeal through the layers, so that they now have not just a professional contact or a potential colleague, but now someone that can be part of their support system. So when they are ready to take next steps, they have that reach back.
Yeah, in terms of economic development, I will say most of the activity that's happening in Guam, to include the large scale activity like the $100 million transactions, the $20 million transactions, those originate generally from people who are familiar with the region and the area, specifically Guam. Like one of the trend lines that I see, or when we saw when property is being bought, I asked what's their connection. Well, I knew so and so back in 1985. I worked on this project, and I've always been familiar with Guam. I still keep in touch with some people. And then that circles back where I was introduced by so-and-so, but generally there's some connectivity. So we're talking about, hey, how are we going to pull this thing out? Well, you have to support efforts like this, because that brings people here and seeds the idea of, hey, I can monetize this place. I can do business here. There are people who are like me that I align with, that I can work with here. And I think that's important for relevance, number one, and also for development.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree on that. And if I may just offer this one last thought is, I do recognize that, with tourism, it's pretty, and that's what got me the support for the summit the first time, was the idea of, we're doing so much to try to appeal to the Japanese, the Koreans. And my comment was, there are Americans living in those countries too. So it's an alternative market, but I can get them here through real estate investing. And when we do get them here, let's take the opportunity to showcase our island. And so for me, this is another way that I'm able to hopefully contribute back to the local economy through tourism. Because get people here, I would tell you, most people who are coming, they wouldn't have come to Guam otherwise. Summit is what's driving them here. But we will get them here, and then we will give them all the unique to Guam experiences. And so that was definitely what we learned last time. The guest speakers, they were all like, oh, I never would have come to Guam before. Thank you, Ann. Thank you for bringing me here. Because as soon as they researched Guam, oops, I tapped on the table.
You're okay. You'll live.
As soon as they researched Guam, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And that's just online, right? Then they get here and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then you layer in the food. Good to go, right?
That's what you save up for day two, for the closing day.
Here's try some empanada. Here, try some.
There you go. Eat up, kids, and sign here.
Yeah.
Well, Ann, it was great having you come in and speak to us today about the upcoming conference. I look forward to seeing you, and I really hope some of your initiatives kind of finally land, right? In terms of 3D printing, that could be really exciting for the market and what you could do, especially for your investors, because now that it's like a real viable product, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of interesting to be an investor and have access to structural opportunities like that. So that's really great.
Absolutely. And I'll share this. So this summit, I don't know when, but I can foresee this summit evolving to showcasing not just real estate investing, but the 3D concrete printing as part of it. So instead of taking people on a private tour of different houses, maybe we take them on a private tour of a facility that houses the 3D concrete printing, or to our pilot program where we're showing that tiny home for homeless vets.
Right. And investment is just about packaging the opportunity in a lot of different ways. And so, but you need eyes on to do that. So kudos to you for getting the eyes and the butts in the seats. And I wish you the best success. And I thank you for coming on, and I'll see you out there.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Right, Ann. Thank you. Okay, so Ann was great, and she talked to us about her experience in the market and what she hopes to achieve in the summit. I really hope that she's a success, because we need new ideas here. We need people trying different things, and we need people willing to take risks to try different things. And no risk it, no biscuit. No risk, no reward. So I really hope that all of you take the opportunity to sign up for the conference, or for the summit, I should say, and give Ann the opportunity to share the information that she's brought to bear for the island for the benefit of the people. Thank you for joining us and sharing all our content on all our channels. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please remember to send us your questions, and we look forward to finding answers here on Data Points.